Hey, second graders. So today we are going to start a brand new chapter book read aloud. And in this read aloud, we are going to be reading the book My Father's Dragon. This book is by Ruth, Stiles, Gannett. Okay. And while we're listening to this story, I want you guys thinking about all the things that good readers do, making sure you're making connections and thinking deeply about what we are reading. Okay, so like I said, this is a chapter book, and for this video, we are just going to read chapters 1 and 2, and chapters 3 and 4 will be in the next video. Okay, so My Father's Dragon. Chapter 1, My Father Meets the Cat. One cold, rainy day, when my father was a little boy, he met an old alley cat on his street. The cat was very drippy and uncomfortable, so my father said, "Wouldn't you like to come home with me?" This surprised the cat. She had never before met anyone who cared about an old alley cat. But she said, "I'd be very much obliged if I could sit by a warm furnace and perhaps have a saucer of milk." "We have a very nice furnace to sit by," said my father, "and I'm sure my mother has an extra saucer of milk." Here's the picture. My father and the cat became good friends, but my father's mother was very upset about the cat. She hated cats, particularly or especially ugly old alley cats. "Elmer Elevator," she said to my father, "if you think I'm going to give that cat a saucer of milk, you're very wrong. Once you start feeding stray alley cats, you might as well expect to feed every stray in town, and I am not going to do it." This made my father very sad, and he apologized to the cat because his mother had been so rude. He told the cat to stay anyway, and that somehow he would bring her a saucer of milk each day. My father fed the cat for 3 weeks, but one day his mother found the cat's saucer in the cellar. A cellar is like a basement. And she was extremely angry. She whipped my father and threw the cat out the door. But later on, my father sneaked out and found the cat. Together, they went for a walk to the park and tried to think of nice things to talk about. My father said, "When I grow up, I'm going to have an airplane. Wouldn't it be wonderful to fly just anywhere you might think of?" "Would you like to fly very, very much?" asked the cat. "I certainly would. I'd do anything if I could fly." "Well," said the cat, "if you really like to fly that much, I think I know of a sort of way that you might get to fly while you're still a little boy." "You mean you know where I could get an airplane?" "Well, not exactly an airplane, but something even better." Right now, I want you to make a prediction. What do you think is even better than an airplane? What is the cat talking about? As you can see, I'm an old cat now, but in my younger days, I was quite a traveler. My traveling days are over, but last spring I took just one more trip, and I sailed off to the island of Tangerina, stopping at the port of Cranberry. Well, it just so happened that I missed the boat, and while waiting for the next, I thought I'd look around a bit. I was particularly interested in a place called Wild Island, which we had passed on our way to Tangerina. Wild Island and Tangerina are joined together by a long string of rocks, but people never go to Wild Island because it's mostly jungle and inhabited by very wild animals. That means very wild animals live there. So I decided to go across the rocks and explore it for myself. It certainly is an interesting place, but I saw something there that made me want to weep. Weep means to cry. So, I want you to make a prediction in your head, or maybe you're wondering, what would make the cat cry or weep? Here is a picture of Wild Island. So hopefully you are using your reading skills to make a prediction, to wonder, and maybe to visualize too, because there are not a lot of pictures in this book, so maybe you're visualizing what it looks like. Chapter 2, My Father Runs Away. Wild Island is practically cut in two by a very wide and muddy river. continued the cat. "This river begins near one end of the island and flows into the ocean at the other. Now, the animals there are very lazy, and they used to hate having to go all the way around to the beginning of this river to get to the other side of the island. It made visiting inconvenient and mail deliveries very slow, particularly during the Christmas rush. Crocodiles could have carried passengers and mail across the river, but crocodiles are very moody and not the least bit dependable, and they are always looking for something to eat. They don't care if the animals have to walk around the river, so that's just what the animals did for many years." "But what does all this have to do with airplanes?" asked my father, who thought the cat was talking an awfully long time to try to explain this. "Be patient, Elmer," said the cat, and she went on with her story. "One day, about 4 months before I arrived on Wild Island, a baby dragon fell from a low-flying cloud onto the bank of the river. He was too young to fly very well, and besides, he had bruised one wing really bad, so he couldn't get back to his cloud. The animals found him soon afterward, and everybody said, 'Why, this is just exactly what we've needed all these years.' They tied a big rope around his neck and waited for the wing to get well. When this was all going to end their crossing the river troubles." "I've never seen a dragon," said my father. "Did you see him? How big was he?" "Oh, yes, indeed. I saw the dragon. In fact, we became great friends," said the cat. "I used to hide in the bushes and talk to him when nobody else was around. He's not a very big dragon, about the size of a large black bear, although I imagine he's grown quite a bit since I left. He's got a long tail and yellow and blue stripes. His horn and eyes and the bottoms of his feet are red, and he has gold-colored wings." "Oh, how wonderful," said my father. "What did the animals do with him when his wing got well?" "They started training him to carry passengers, and even though he is just a baby dragon, they work him all day and all night too sometimes. They make him carry loads that are much too heavy, and if he complains, they twist his wings and hurt him. He's always tied to a stake on a rope, just long enough to get across the river. His only friends are the crocodiles, who say hello to him once a week, if they don't forget. Really, he's the most miserable or very sad animal I've come across. When I left, I promised I'd try to help him someday, although I couldn't see how. The rope around his neck is about the biggest, toughest rope you can imagine. With so many knots, it would take days to untie them all." Here's a picture of the dragon falling from the cloud. So right now you might be visualizing the dragon. Think about what colors he is, how big he might be. You might be thinking about what it looks like if he's tied up by the river, using your visualizing skills. Anyway, when you were talking about airplanes, you gave me a good idea. Now, I'm quite sure that if you were able to rescue the dragon, which wouldn't be the least bit easy, he'd let you ride him almost anywhere, provided you were nice to him, of course. How about trying it?" "Oh, I'd love to," said my father, and he was so angry at his mother for being rude to the cat that he didn't feel the least bit sad about running away from home for a while. That very afternoon, my father and the cat went down to the docks to see about ships going to the island of Tangerina. They found out that a ship would be sailing next week, so right away they started planning for the rescue of the dragon. The cat was a great help in suggesting things for my father to take with him, and she told him everything she knew about Wild Island. Of course, she was too old to go along with him. Everything had to be kept very secret, so when they found or bought anything to take on the trip, they hid it behind a rock in the park. The night before my father sailed, he borrowed his father's knapsack, which is like a backpack, and he and the cat packed everything very carefully. He took chewing gum, 24 pink lollipops, a package of rubber bands, black rubber boots, a compass, a toothbrush, and a tube of toothpaste, 6 magnifying glasses, a very sharp jackknife, a comb and a hairbrush, 7 hair ribbons of different colors, an empty grain bag with the label saying cranberry, some clean clothes, and enough food to last my father while he was on the ship. He couldn't live on mice, so he took 25 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and 6 apples, because that's all the apples he could find in the pantry. When everything was packed, my father and the cat went down to the docks to the ship. A night watchman was on duty, so while the cat made loud, strange noises to distract his attention, my father ran over the gangplank and onto the ship. He went down into the hold and hid among some bags of wheat. The ship sailed early the next morning. There's the cat. There's the ship. And that is the end of chapter 2. So I want you thinking in your head, what connections could you make to this book? Are you thinking that it sounds like any other books that you've read? Have you read any other books with talking cats or talking animals? Maybe you're making a connection because you know that this book is going to be fiction or fantasy because it's about dragons. Think about text to self or text to text connections you might be making with this story. And think about predictions. So you know that he's getting on a boat. You know all the things that are in his backpack. You know where he's trying to go. Think about what might happen next in this story. Okay. See you guys later.